What exactly is the appeal, pun intended, of Donkey Kong? I've never got it. He's an ape who doesn't speak. And this is an entirely shallow and subjective take, but I don't like the way he looks. Something about the brow, the overbite. He looks like someone that once pushed me into a hedge, and like the best, most well-adjusted people, I bear worthwhile, lifelong grudges. But I think there is something there. He's an ape who doesn't speak. He's unrelatable and basically unknowable. Link is an elf who doesn't speak. Kirby is a whatever Kirby is who doesn't speak. Mario is a plumber who whoops and hollers in a way that hopefully most people can't identify with. But all three of those other Nintendo mascots show more relatable human personality through a single motivated, furrowed brow than the ape with the tie. That they are motivated by more noble concerns than retrieving a hoard of bananas is a further mark against Donkey Kong. A hero who doesn't save the world? Who wants that? So that's definitely a retcon of my relationship with Donkey Kong. A tasteful reading of what amounts to simply being turned off by the look of a character who, in reality, would probably smell really bad. And maybe it's because I missed the boat on the Donkey Kong Country games, but I've ultimately just never been attracted to his games, or him as a character. I think a large part of that boils down to that question. What's to like about Donkey Kong? Who is he? What's his thing? Mario is an acrobat. Link is a magic warrior. Kirby is a world-ending cosmic god. Donkey Kong is... Look at the games that bear his name. Well-received, usually quite important games, all of which are good because of their basic ideas, rather than any qualities unique to the character. That original arcade game, that Sermon on the Mount, is good because it's good. Any sprite could be at the top of the screen throwing barrels at you. The 1994 Game Boy game is the same. The conclusion of that arcade style, a triumph of pocket-sized level design, where DK is simply an ever-disappearing antagonist. Donkey Kong Country is the first game to give him his own thing. A platformer built with a specific moveset and landscape, but where the personality comes from the world, rather than the ape himself. He's not even the star of its superior sequels. And people don't even like the stars of those sequels. And those other characters. What exactly are we supposed to do with Dixie, Kiddy, and Cranky Kong? And what exactly are we supposed to do with Donkey Kong 64? A game which no amount of rose-tinted revisionism can save. I've dabbled with Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, and they feel good to play, and I totally get the praise for them. But with no personal investment in the character, I've never been compelled to go further. They are universally praised games, so that's on me. But I don't get the charm, if that's what there is to get. And I don't get him. And I think Nintendo see that. They see that there's not much in a character who offers only one discernible trait, and if you don't like bananas, then you're really up against it. And they want this guy to be a star, a tentpole franchise. So, what's the solution? To rebuild the character as a charming goofball, motivated by adventure, and make a game that reflects this redesign, tailored and structured to his unique physical characteristics in a way that previous ones weren't. To swing wildly. And also, to make one of the best games that they have ever made. Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. This is episode 15, Donkey Kong Bananza. I'll admit that I'm late to this party. I've been away, partly on holiday, partly trying to play this game, the former inevitably getting in the way of the latter. I haven't finished this game because of that, and also, in a way that I'm sure will resonate with some listeners because of the constant desire to see what's over that hill, and that one, and then that one. Based on the way this game is structured, and the various ways in which it is built to distract you, I'm not sure I ever will. Playing this game on holiday was kind of perfect though, and not just for the ever-present tropical getaway vibes that DK has been a vehicle for with his last few games. Bananza, with its wanton destruction and joyful expressiveness, feels like a holiday from, well, life. So, at the time of recording, there's already been a lot of excellent digital ink spilled on this game. A lot of great takes and interesting summations of its qualities. At the time of recording, it holds a 91 on both Metacritic and OpenCritic, with some wonderfully effusive lyrical reviews out there, seemingly inspired by the wild, intoxicating nature of this game. Logan Plant's piece for IGN is the most stirring example of this, his breathless review conjuring a wide-eyed, childlike sense of wonder and concluding with the words, quote, "Bananza is a constant crescendo across its 20-hour campaign and beyond, with puzzle platforming concepts that only grow richer as DK and Pauline dive deeper toward the planet core. Every element comes together in complete harmony to create Nintendo's first Switch 2 masterpiece." End quote. There's tens all over the place. One from Silicon Era said, quote, "Donkey Kong Bananza is not only one of the best Switch 2 games in 2025, it will be one of the best titles released this year on any platform." And another from Inverse that said, quote, "Donkey Kong Bananza is a statement from Nintendo, making it clear that the company's innovation isn't going to stop on Switch 2. And it's fair to say that this is a game that could only have been achieved on this new system, with how wildly ambitious its world structure and destruction are. Bananza isn't just a system seller, it's a genre-defining game that others will likely be looking to for years to come." End quote. High praise, most of which is hard to disagree with. I don't think it's a 10, but I don't think any game is. So what is there to add to this? Well, I've been itching to write and record this review, just to air a take that I felt was original, something that I could shout from the rooftops. Of course, it's not. I saw this articulated on Blue Sky by Chris Schelling. Then the floodgates opened and I seemingly saw the comparison everywhere. So let's go with it anyway, and get into what I feel is the true DNA of this game. The true heart and soul of this grand retooling of this character, stylistically and mechanically. Stylistically speaking, I feel there is one clear influence. Not in the specifics of the look, but philosophically in terms of how that style is used. And that is Splatoon. Splatoon is a franchise that, aside from gameplay refined to the sharpest of edges, is one that emphasises expression of personality through music, fashion, and colour. Donkey Kong Bananza, and you can choose your own metaphor here, sings from that hymn sheet, is cut from the same cloth, is painted on the same canvas. Your companion, the voice of the game, is a character who very literally finds her voice in the course of it, whose singing guides you and transforms both the world and you. The elders of the world, the ones who bestow game-changing powers upon you, are DJs, who value music above all else. That music seems to come from the same place as Splatoon. Vibrant, colourful, J-pop influenced stuff. Also, there is a currency in this game that is used to buy clothes, or dye your fur, that provide various buffs or stat increases. Personality is expressed through art and style, and that art and style provide ability, strength. That is the mentality of Splatoon, and more broadly, of modern Nintendo. There is something else in the DNA of modern Nintendo that permeates this game. Something that seems of even greater significance in terms of where they will go with their design from here. It was there in the trailers, in the reveal of a blue-skied, open-air world that bends to your will, that you can break and build as you need. It was there in the trailers, in the reveal of a mutual friendship, based on helping each other, in the moments where they rise and fall, and in that moment where their hands so nearly touch mid-air. The true DNA of this game is not Super Mario Odyssey. It is, in fact, that of Tears of the Kingdom. Of course, there are similarities to Odyssey. There being a main collectible, Bananza gems here, hidden and not hidden in equal measure, and the varied chainable moveset. But those are not features unique to Odyssey. Those are just things that Nintendo does. Donkey Kong Bananza, with its emphasis less on precise platforming and more on action and meaningful player-led interaction between player and environment, shares far more philosophically with the most recent 3D Zelda game than the most recent 3D Mario one. In Tears of the Kingdom, you manipulate the world and the objects in it to shape your path through it. In Bananza, you do the same, in a less sophisticated way, but one that is ultimately, arguably, more satisfying. Each world is basically linear. There's an entry point and an exit point, with branches off that all lead back to the central path. But your route through it, however you carve your way from point A to point B, will be different to every other player. Different. That's the key thing about Bananza. It's different to previous Donkey Kong games, and that's why it got me in a way that those games never did. Let's dig into why it's different. First, with the USP for this game, that mechanic. The ability to dig, terraform, destroy, whatever, in Donkey Kong Bananza was revealed in its first trailer in April 2025. It looked fine. People got their hands on it at preview events later that month. Reception seemed to stall at cool, with reports mostly expressing uncertainty about the shape of the game and how far this ability could carry it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, of course, and if shown only the tutorial area, I could maybe see myself having reservations about the game. But, really, I'm not sure how these reactions came about en masse, because this mechanic got me immediately. Is this ability to destroy an environment through every punch, headbutt or jump, the single most satisfying and effectively implemented game mechanic of the year? Of the decade? Now, I'm simply not widely educated enough to make any kind of definitive statement on that, but this does feel like we've been shown something new. Which sounds like a deeply stupid way of describing punching through mud, sand or rock, but that's my intellectual level. Smashing through this environment, up, down, left, right, any kind of weird counterintuitive zigzag, feels so good that it removes almost any impulse to even attempt to make linear progress. Who needs to go over there when we're doing this over here? Smashing through this environment, up, down, left, right, any kind of weird counterintuitive zigzag, feels so good that it turns exploration, the essence of the game, into something that just happens organically, automatically. Smashing through this environment with your small but flexible toolset enables a constant flow, constantly rewarded by discovery, rewards, and progress. It is impossible to tackle this game in a straight line. It's too much fun to tackle in a straight line. Why would you want to? I think there's a few points to extrapolate from this that should be highlighted. First, I think this demonstrates a pretty mad level of ambition and skill. To even philosophically conceive of a game that works in this way, let alone realise it. A game world has been designed here with all the usual tangible and intangible factors in mind. Puzzle, challenge, action, discovery, progress, fun. But you can destroy it. all of it. That such a world can be designed with such a mechanic in place is, to put it bluntly, pretty mind-blowing to me. Mario Odyssey was a flex of intricately designed sandboxes. Tears of the Kingdom was a flex of a malleable open world. Donkey Kong Bonanza mashes the extreme ends of those games into something entirely of its own, something that only makes sense if you are playing as a giant ape. Something different. Let's get a little specific. I like smashing diagonally. Punch up, then forwards, then up, then forwards. You can pound downwards then forwards to achieve the same effect in the opposite direction. You can roll into terrain. You can roll, then jump, then roll again to cover maximum distance. You can roll into enemies, sending them flying explosively into the terrain or other enemies. You can leap from anywhere, execute a downward punch and tear through the ground beneath you. You can simply headbutt your way upwards. That every action is rewarded with a little rumble, a visual pop, and shower of gold is just a small part of the constant dopamine rush of this game. You can also tear chunks out of the ground and swing them wildly around. You can blindly throw that chunk with a tap of ZR or manually target with Splatoon-esque motion controls by holding the button. You can use those same chunks to surf across the environment, a classic Nintendo move to streamline the traversal even further, a neatly handled upgrade of Link's shield surfing. Throwing a chunk of earth downward also affects a double jump, in a move reminiscent of a game that I covered previously on this show, Promenade. In that episode, I drew a comparison between that game and the original run of Donkey Kong Countries. Time truly is a flat circle. You can also use chunks of earth to create bridges, towers, or any kind of malformed structural monstrosity, if the terrain in your hand matches that which you are throwing at. That is perhaps the best demonstration of how the current design philosophy of Nintendo games is geared towards intuitive manipulation, the influence of Minecraft writ large, but channeled into a classic single-player gamey game. Destruction and creation are not the preserve of menus, a map, eye-squinting precision. Rather, those functions are at your fingertips at all times. It's easy enough to map an action to a button, but to have a game react, precisely, and without completely falling apart, in that wishful blue sky way, that's the magic trick. At the risk of interrupting the flow, I think there's a couple of other things worth highlighting here. A couple of, not accessibility features, but rather smart, thoughtful, player-friendly decisions. You cannot dig or destroy yourself into a game-breaking hole, for a couple of reasons. You can climb almost any surface, no stamina bar. You can carry things whilst climbing. You can reset the terrain from the menu at any point. And the 3D map in that menu is brilliant. An easily readable addition that highlights points of interest and story targets that dynamically reflects the level of destruction that you have wrought on any given landscape. It's great to look at, it's easy to use, and is the best 3D map since Metroid Prime, meaning that that game is no longer the best at anything. Another time. Another time. You can perform a ground slap that doesn't destroy anything, but draws nearby collectibles to you. This is not a hidden feature by any means. It's a tutorialized, upgradable move, but still worth noting. It's non-destructive. It removes the need to interrupt your flow to stop and collect items, and it also affects a sonar wave that reveals items hidden in the landscape around you. I run around just hammering this button, because I want every fossil in this game, because I want every outfit in this game. More on that in a bit. Because of all of this, the effectiveness of it, I cannot stop playing this game. I go in every direction but forwards. I stupidly equip the tie that increases the amount of treasure chests that appear, incentivizing procrastination even further. When I collect enough bananas to make the skill tree appear, I skip out of it immediately, because I don't want to look at a skill tree. I want to carry on going in whatever direction I haven't yet gone in. I've got over 30 skill points banked now. Maybe I'll cash them in at some point. Because of all of this, the effectiveness of it, I cannot stop playing this game. There was another game that I've been playing daily since January 1st of this year. What that is will come up on another episode in the future. I've had to drop that game. Not because I don't like it, of course, but simply because I can't get away from Bananza. And more specifically still, I can't get away from the way you interact with Bananza. I don't want to stop, because you never need to stop. I don't want to stop, because this is something different. But this is something different for everything, not just Donkey Kong. What I think bears more focus is what has been brought specifically to this character for this game, and that's the level of personality, humour and expression. This is evident from the very start. DK bursting through a wall, clothed in dungarees. It worked for the plumber. Before breaking into a goofy, banana-induced eye-pop of an expression reminiscent of a Ghibli character jonesing for ramen. The level of expression in the animation is surely influenced by the direction that Mario Wonder took. These are cartoon characters. Make them feel like cartoon characters. And so they do. DK is now softer, more human, less of the hard animal edges of his previous design. He just looks more fun, more silly, more like a character you actually want to spend time with. His tongue lolls out like a happy dog. He hangs comically limply from a balloon when you fall. And when there is singing, he sings along, eyes closed and conducting with his hands. To borrow a phrase from football commentary, his every move is performed with a smile. Furthermore, he is given a measure of personality in a move borrowed from the 3D Zelda games. He doesn't speak, and yet you are given dialogue options when in conversation. All silly one-word goofs that suggest a silly, goofy guy. Even the villains have had an upgrade here. At least in terms of design, Void Kong and the other minions are a world away from previous antagonists. The Tiki tribe are generally agreed to be a big whatever, and personally, you've got to get out of here with that King K. Rool revisionism. He and the Kremlins seem to have a particular hold over a certain kind of DK fan. I've always found them ugly and unappealing, and I don't want them back. Void Kong, a rabid little psychopath straight out of the Short King playbook, is an enjoyable, memorably punchable villain. Of course, our main character's motivations are still shallow. He just wants bananas. And that's always been played for laughs. But I think that comes across more effectively here because of the change in animation style, and the pulling of a classic trick borrowed from cinema, particularly Disney. The relatable human companion. Now, it's very much a cheat to get around the unknowable nature of a monkey in a tie, but the relationship between Pauline and Donkey Kong is the heart of Bananza, the conduit through which this game expresses its love of expression. And Pauline is worth focusing on, as she is, bizarrely for a game about an ape throwing chunks of crap at rock monsters, one of the more fleshed out Nintendo protagonists. This is also laudable as she is a female character, historically ignored or given short shrift by both industry and company. Now, we're not talking The Last of Us here, but it's at least something, and certainly a step up from previous Nintendo attempts. Insert sideways glance at Princess Peach Showtime. Pauline's story is the story of the game, and her journey, performance and interactions with Donkey Kong possess a level of heart and charm that I've never felt from previous titles bearing his name. She's an aspiring singer, an attribute here presented as pure of heart rather than the craven ambition that modern TV has taught us. whose nerves and self-doubt constantly get the better of her. Her first attempt to perform is a cute supercut of her struggling to approach the microphone. DK's background reactions a comic compliment to this. She chats away when on his back, encouraging her new pal to be careful, or in a move that I find weirdly funny, egging him on to destroy whatever enemy is in their path. And these aren't Navi or Fi-esque interruptions. She never tutorializes or lectures. She never irritates. She's your way of finding those fossils that get you interacting with one of the most personality-driven, Splatoon-aping aspects of this game. The outfits. Each layer has its own currency of fossil that you can spend on a variety of costumes. Now, obviously, cosmetic changes are a common, basic enough addition to any game, but here, unlike Odyssey, and like Splatoon, they affect your gameplay, and can be employed strategically. You can deck DK and Poilian out in all manner of wonderfully eye-popping get-ups that increase health, energy speed recovery, ice damage, all that sort of thing. Personally, I'd like to be able to buy the effects and apply them to my favourite pair of stupid-looking pants and tie, rather than switching environment-appropriate clothes between levels, but that's as minor as concerns get. This is just another layer of personality in this game. Now, we don't play Pauline, but she is us. She's nervous, but ready for adventure, trying to overcome her doubts and fears. She does this through music. Her singing is a wayfinder, a guide. Her singing unlocks new routes, challenges, progress. Music is very bluntly a way forward in this game. A pretty appealing mindset, and one very much in line with modern Nintendo ideas. And so, speaking of the music, reaction to the soundtrack of this game has been, from what I have seen, pretty mixed. I'm not on board with that. I think it's great. The various tributes, remixes, and references to past Donkey Kong music are subtle and sweet, and it would be inappropriate to ignore those past highlights in a game like this that, like other recent franchise entries from Nintendo, celebrates the past of whatever series it is. And then, there's the new stuff. There's a great variety of music in this game. You've already heard the disco referencing Ingot Isle cave-in music, some nice ambient pieces from the Divide and Freezer layers, and some swaggering surf rock from the Canyon layer. There's a few more bangers coming up, but really, it's all about those Bananzas. Just listen. Pure J-pop energy. It's great, and just about enough to distract you from the cosmic horror of the Bananza transformations, which is a useful point at which to pivot to talking about the downsides of this game. The Bananzas are probably the headline here. These transformations are essentially a cheat code, overpowered Super Saiyan abilities that can trivialise many of the challenges or puzzles you are presented with. The ease with which energy is acquired to effect these transformations is more of the issue here. There is little tension in the time limit to which they adhere, knowing you can just kick the effect back off as soon as it ends. It feels like these are an accessibility option for younger players, and ultimately that's fine. More experienced players don't have to use these tools outside of the sections for which they are essential. Now, on those options for younger players, the co-op mode should be mentioned. It's a step up from Mario Odyssey, which simply gave Player 2 the ability to throw Cappy, but affects a level of chaos that may or may not be entirely up your street. Player 2 is essentially playing an on-rail shooter, copying elements from the environment and blasting them at enemies. It's still too complex for younger players. There are too many controls in this game, especially if you're playing with split Joy-Cons, and yet it's still slightly too simple for older players. And Player 2 is given control of the camera. Have you ever given control of a 3D camera to a child? Do it, and learn a humbling lesson on the futility of polite negotiation. Speaking of the camera, it's been pointed out that it can sometimes get stuck. It can. Then, with a jiggle, a headbutt, or a left hook, it's unstuck. The camera in this game should get stuck. It should be unusable. The game itself should probably be unplayable. The amount of processing going on at any given time is, surely, bananas. The fact that it works flawlessly 95% of the time should, I think, be noted more than that sticky 5%. On challenge, that's been a divisive issue to which I do relate. The main game is a pretty frictionless experience, where the bosses are not much of a step up from the disappointments that littered Mario Wonder. The challenge rooms, Bananza's shrines, are a mixed bunch. The combat rooms are basic, the rooms based around collecting vast amounts of gold redundant. But the platforming challenges are much better, especially the 2D Donkey Kong Country aping ones. And I appreciate the more demanding ones. I like when the game explores the tension between your mastery of the moveset, turf surfing, jump rolling, and a timer. I've come across one notable puzzle-based one so far, where the game forced you to think about the order and angle at which you destroyed the environment to solve a particular problem. Now that was a cool application of this toolset. I hope there's more like it, and I hope the scope of these challenges develops further as you get deeper into the game. Those sound like significant issues, and they are worth noting in any discussion of this game, but they still don't amount to much of a negative impact on the total package. Donkey Kong Bonanza is, mostly, what everyone says it is. Nintendo's best team at full tilt, taking a grand, ambitious idea and going all in on building a game around it where everything is fun. There's an argument out there that the act of smashing your way through the landscape is repetitive, that the game, with its streamlined difficulty and progression, has little to offer beyond that. I disagree with that. It's a common conclusion to reviews of these sorts of games, but those drawbacks are mitigated by one simple fact. The game is endlessly fun to play. If Bananza doesn't end up providing some of the gonzo semi-hardcore platforming from the late stages of Super Mario 3D World or Odyssey, that'll be disappointing. But fine. There are other games for that. Personally, I think there's more than enough in the main campaign for most gamers, but that the game will also find another, separate life in the speedrun community. Set your watches for the next awesome games done quick, and we'll see if Donkey Kong Bonanza has the legs to match its arms. I can't believe that I'm saying this, but let this ape be himself. And so, many, many years after I first laid eyes on him, I am fully turned around on DK. His new game is something different from what has gone before, but also represents something grander in the story of modern Nintendo, and the Switch too. It's a return to reinvention. It's pure energy. The video game world would continue to turn just fine without a groundbreaking Donkey Kong game, but Nintendo made one anyway, throwing everything at a character that they didn't need to, pushing it to the very forefront of their input and output, reinventing this franchise in a way that appeals to an incredibly broad sweep of gamers in broad but substantial ways. I'm going to keep digging deeper, taking every diversion I can. I'm still not bored of collecting bananas, and I'm still loving every roll, hand clap, and downward punch. It is, truly, smashing stuff. Pun intended. Thanks for listening. The artwork for Dialogue Tree was produced by Pixel Benny, and the show notes for this episode are linked in the episode description. You can find the show online at dialoguetree.cc. Talk to you next time.